How does his story frame the broader structural violence of the Alabama prison system?
Um, Derek is an interesting case. Um, uh, First of all, he's dealt with many illnesses he didn't have before he got to prison. So since coming to prison, he has gotten HIV and Hep C through intravenous drug use. He is he's serving a sentence for all nonviolent crimes. He all drug crimes, and I think a couple cases of check fraud. And uh, he has been but nonetheless he has a sort of maybe some of it from his upbringing, maybe some of it from built into him from his time in prison. He has a sort of macho outlook on the world. He talks about how his dad influenced that.
Yeah.
Um, and But because of the HIV diagnosis, he's nonetheless been targeted as gay, and so is facing harassment and sometimes abuse as a result. Um, he's been in situations where he committed violent acts in self-defense. As far as we know, he hadn't committed any violent acts in the free world. I've also interviewed on the other side of it people who are only convicted of violent crimes, and from what we know, didn't have drug problems documented beforehand, and then started using drugs in prison. Um, so for is sort of an example of the system's failure at every level. Uh, so um, so yeah, and also Derek's struggle to get help is a major theme. And trying to stay out of trouble in the hopes he can come up for parole.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Derek the person that you write about that at one point has to defend himself? Um, you talk early on that he actually had a surgery done on his shoulder. I'm assuming he's an older man,
Mhm.
and he says he can't protect himself because the HIV diagnosis and the Hep C diagnosis made people think he was gay, which is really looked down upon. But also because of the HIV and Hep C diagnosis, people don't want to even attack him with fists, so they use sticks and
Mhm.
other weapons to, which are probably worse. I don't know if it's better or worse, to attack him as well. Why do you think homosexual sexuality is looked down upon so hard in the Alabama prison system?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I think that there's an element of I mean, first of all, rape is a huge problem in general, and homosexuals are often targeted. Um, I think also the overcrowding causes uh, prisoners with very different charges often to be mixed up with each other. Um, and and also there are certain, I mean, maybe it's partly a boring answer, but there are certain long held stereotypes. Weaknesses in those environments are often exploited, and people in those circumstances do, you know, uh, the people who are being treated so horrifically often treat other people so horrifically. So, um, yeah, and they're, it's not like the only sort of prejudice people hold in the prisons. But
And
since
there
the
was
book
something else
focuses so much
you
on oh,
there was
sorry.
something else you had noted in the book too. I don't know if this is still a law that said that no gay man can be raped in prison, or no gay man can be raped.
Well, that was a DOJ report, an investigation, and a report criticized the state of Alabama for implying that in their response to that report, I believe, for implying that gay people can't be raped.
Mhm.
Um, I but yeah, so does that answer your question about that?
Yeah. I couldn't remember if it was a statute, but that was the DOJ saying that this isn't a problem because they can't be raped because they like it.
I don't believe there's a statute saying I could be wrong about that. I don't believe there's a statute saying that. I think there was, that the state officials had publicly implied that. Um,
That's frightening as well.
yeah. Yeah, so that's part of it. And there's also just a great deal of exploitation, and part of the reason while I don't focus on like all the prejudices the prisoners hold in the prisons, because the book so narrowly focuses on living conditions, uh, uh, and sexual assault is such a huge problem. It is often gay and trans prisoners who are, again, many of the sources I interviewed are heterosexual but have been raped. Uh,
Mm,
but but it's a known, but discrimination against people who are deemed to be sissies uh, are are targeted uh, in really frightening way, are essentially sometimes kidnapped by or not kidnapped, but held against their will, yeah,
yeah.
kidnapped within the prison, I guess. Um, and are almost like traded, between people sometimes for what they perceive to be protection. Um, so yeah, and what's interesting about Derek is, like, he's constantly reminding me throughout the interview that, like, he's not gay. Like, he's very concerned about that, but he's also struggling with the fact that, like, he's being targeted in a way that, like, maybe he hadn't considered much before or held different views about before.
Mhm.
So, it was interesting that he was sort of struggling with that. Um, and also he explained a lot about how, like, people who are gay or even labeled as gay are, they are, people don't wanna touch their food, they don't allow, they don't allow them in the ice chest. There's, like, weird forms of but constant forms of discrimination,
Mhm.
and sort of, and yes, so, yeah.
In chapter 2, you detail one inmate's struggles with mental illness. Can you expand on that for the audience a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think in chapter 2, that prisoner talks a lot about the mistreatment of other people with not only mental illness, but with disability, with serious mental illness, and also sometimes mental disabilities, and how they're often targeted as well and stolen from and mistreated. And also, Bullock was, is designed to be, or was conceived of as a sort of mental health institution. And there's, my understanding, one building there that mainly deals the most with mental health issues. But and this is something that also, in addition to that prisoner, a former guard I interviewed, who worked in several prisons in Alabama, pointed out as well that, because the prisons are so overcrowded, people sort of deal with their mental health issues all over the state. And in Bullock, like, there's a lot of people in there who should probably be in, like Hamilton Aged and a place like Hamilton Aged and Infirmed, if anything, which is like the place where they deal with older people with serious disabilities. But that prison only holds a small amount of people, as far as I understand. Um, and uh, the system is, around 100, Alabama's prisons are around 170% of capacity. Um, so yeah, and also there's also that in chapter 2, that prisoner also talks about physical health issues, like people walking around with, like, colostomy bags,
Yeah.
older people in wheelchairs. There's also, this is a theme that's come up in other stories, is like, uh there's a lot of amputations in Alabama prisons. There have been even lawsuits about that. There are a lot of the spread of illnesses is terrible. There are things like, a lot of things like scabies. People have died of sepsis.
Jesus.
More commonly, things like COVID are really dangerous in these environments. And when reporting I did years ago, not for this book, the Alabama Department of Corrections confirmed to me that during the pandemic that social distancing was impossible in any of its prisons. Um, and so yeah, so there's a lot of diabetes is a major issue 'cause it's hard to manage. The
Is it
diet.
because they won't give people their medication, or is it just because the food they're eating is so rich in probably, bad calories?
Well, I'm, a lot of people I interview who have it are being treated with pills instead of like
Instant.
insulin shots. So I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but and then also, yeah, like the diet is limited. It's hard to, especially if you're somebody who has no money, you can't get anything from the commissary.
Mhm.
You are forced to eat the little that you get. I interview prisoners in that situation. Um, Often they're older guys who don't have anyone in the free world that just um, anymore, or they don't have contact or whatever. And so yeah, you have to sort of manage your diabetes on this really controlled diet, and also another theme is they're not getting fed a large amount in each meal either. They talk about the, like, multiple prisoners, so they're being fed like school children,
Mhm.
like similar phrasing each time. Um, but yeah, so yeah, yeah.